I want to start this story by saying one important thing. The grave hidden in Brookhaven is real. This isn't a theory or a rumor made up by players. It physically exists inside the map's geometry, buried deep in the textures, and it can still be found today if you know where to look and how to move the camera correctly. I didn't think much of it at first. I assumed it was just leftover terrain, something forgotten during development. That changed after someone contacted me. The message came from a player who asked me not to mention their username. They said they had been around Brookhaven since its early versions, back when the game was unstable and constantly being rebuilt. According to them, Brookhaven didn't always have a clear development team. Many people helped unofficially, testing builds, reporting bugs, creating small assets, giving feedback. Most of them were never credited. One of those people, they said, suddenly disappeared. This wasn't someone famous or publicly known. They were active almost every day, helping with testing and communicating with others in private spaces. Then one day, they stopped responding. Their accounts went inactive. Messages were never read. At first, people assumed they had simply quit. But weeks passed, then months. No explanation ever came. No one knew if they left by choice or if something else happened. What makes this disturbing is what happened shortly after. According to the player, not long after this disappearance, a grave appeared in an early version of Brookhaven. It wasn't placed inside the city or meant to be seen by players. It existed far outside the playable area, partially merged into the terrain. Only players who explored beyond the map's boundaries could see it, and even then, only from specific angles. At first, no one paid attention. Brookhaven back then had unfinished areas everywhere, broken geometry, test objects, unused assets. But this grave stood out. It didn't look random. It had a clear stone shape, flowers placed beside it. Everything about it looked deliberate, like someone had taken time to put it there. There was no name on it, no dates, no text at all. The player told me that when a few people started asking questions about the grave, the conversations didn't go anywhere. Threads were quietly deleted. Messages went unanswered. Not because anyone told them to stop, but because no one seemed willing to acknowledge it. Eventually, people stopped bringing it up. Then Brookhaven changed again. A major update came out. The map was rebuilt. Terrain was flattened. Textures were shifted. After that update, the grave became much harder to find. It wasn't removed. It was pushed deeper into the map's geometry, hidden inside the textures where it couldn't be seen unless you knew exactly where to look. The player ended this part of the story with a sentence that stuck with me. They said the grave was never meant to explain anything. It was meant to stay hidden. After that conversation, I didn't hear from the player for a while, and I thought the story ended there. Just another disappearance with no answers. But a few days later, they sent me one last message, much shorter and colder than the rest. And that message changed everything. They said the person who disappeared was eventually found in real life, months after they went silent online, in a forest not far from where they lived, and the circumstances made no sense. There were no witnesses, no clear cause, nothing that could be properly explained, and the case was officially closed as an accident, even though no one could say what actually happened. No one was charged, no one was publicly suspected, and the story quietly disappeared along with the person. Then the player told me something that made the grave feel much worse. According to them, the grave was added after the body was found, not before. And the timing matched perfectly with an early Brookhaven update when the grave first appeared outside the map. The player believed the grave was not placed by the developers as part of the game, not approved, not announced, and not officially acknowledged. And the reason it was never removed was because no one could clearly trace who added it in the first place. The grave wasn't a memorial in the traditional sense. It was a symbol, a quiet marker acknowledging that the person was gone, placed by someone who knew what happened, or at least knew enough to feel responsible. Someone who didn't want attention or questions, just a grave hidden where almost no one would ever see it. The player said there were rumors back then, nothing official, just whispers, that someone involved in early development still had access to the map and knew how to add objects without leaving obvious traces, and that the same person disappeared from discussions shortly after the grave appeared. No one could prove anything, and eventually people stopped asking. What made this even worse was the last detail they shared, that over the years, players occasionally reported seeing a strange account on certain servers, an account that didn't roleplay, didn't chat, didn't interact, but would slowly walk through the city, stop for long periods of time, and then leave. It never stayed long enough to track and never appeared consistently, except for one pattern that stood out. According to multiple reports, that account was often present on servers where players later claimed to have found the grave. Not every time, but often enough to notice. The account never exploited, never glitched, never did anything that could get it reported. It just observed, like it was checking something. I can't confirm that account exists, and I can't prove it's connected. And I'm not saying the person who added the grave is the same one responsible for what happened in real life. But the idea that someone might still be watching the map, making sure the grave stays hidden, is something I haven't been able to shake. After reading that message, I joined Brookhaven one last time. I didn't look for the grave, and I didn't move the camera into the terrain. I just stayed in the city watching players come and go. And at one point, someone joined the server. They didn't talk, didn't roleplay, didn't interact with anyone. They walked slowly to the edge of the map, stood there for a moment, and then left. I don't know who created the grave. I don't know why it was never removed, and I don't know if the person connected to that disappearance has anything to do with the strange behavior players still report. But the grave is real. The person is dead. And whoever placed that marker inside Brookhaven has never been identified. Some memorials are built to remember the dead. Others are built to remind someone else. And that's what makes this story hard to forget. If you want more stories and myths like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel. And if you know any Roblox myths or legends, leave them in the comments.